Driver of the number 51 Anthony Campi Racing Super Late Model, Stephen Nasse, shared his comments after he was penalized following an altercation at the Winchester 400 after the end of the race. You can look here, just as a refresher, here is what the ASA Stars National Tour, how they penalized both Gio Ruggiero and Stephen Nasse. It says right here, Gio Ruggiero, driver of the car number 22, has been issued with the following penalty: loss of 25 finishing position championship owner and driver points, a fine of $3,000, placed on probation for all ASA events in the remainder of the calendar year. Stephen Nasse, driver of car number 51, has been issued with the following penalty: loss of 44 finishing position championship owner and driver points, a fine of $4,500, and he was placed on probation for all ASA events in the remainder of the calendar year. As far as Nasse goes, he did indeed rub doors after the race with Gio Ruggiero, hit him a couple times, parked his car next to him on the front stretch following the conclusion of the race, and then after Ruggiero attempted to do a celebration, he was confronted by a number of Nasse's crew and family members. He also jumped out of his car and rushed Ruggiero's car in an attempt to physically attack him. And as far as Ruggiero, he was also involved in kind of revving up his engine and basically running over Nasse's dad as he attempted to do some burnouts following the win. So Nasse spoke with Short Track Scene's Matt Weaver and shared his thoughts about the penalty and the fine, and this is what he had to say. Here he said, "I hate for the punishment to come out the way it did. This isn't NASCAR, and that's what I preach to them. We don't make enough purse money to pay fines like that. I also feel like I get the short end of the stick on these kind of deals. I know people are complaining on the internet and are against me, and to be honest, I don't care. I don't care what people think. At the end of the day, it's short track racing, and it's supposed to be exciting, and the fans got their money's worth that day. I don't think we should be punished for that as drivers." So you do have the ASA Tour also informed Matt Weaver of their rules violation. You can see them all here highlighted. Weaver basically summarizes it here. Actually, he doesn't, but you see all of them here. Upon admittance to a restricted area, all participants must conduct themselves in a manner not detrimental to stock car racing. Profanity in front of race fans, officials, management, profane signs, or writing on cars, etc., will not be tolerated and may be subject the offending party to penalties. Conduct in social media deemed detrimental to the series. Track officials or sponsors may subject the driver or team to sanctions. Unsportsmanlike conduct and/or actions detrimental to the sport of auto racing will not be tolerated. A competitor that stops his or her car on the track to argue or discuss an incident with the starter or other officials may be subject to penalties, which Nasse did. Although I don't know if he did it to a, he didn't really do it to an official. He did it to confront Ruggiero. Verbal or physical abuse of officials, including improper language or actions, will result in sanctions from the track. I'm sure words were exchanged with officials when lots of people were going back and forth with officials, Ruggiero, Nasse's team, etc. Fighting will not be tolerated. Clearly, Nasse did try. He admitted in a post-race interview that he did want to get his hands on Ruggiero. But I'm not sure if there was any actual fighting involved. I think there was a little bit of a scuffle, but it was mainly a lot of shouting and then people basically getting separated pretty quickly. It wasn't really that much of a fight. Drivers will be held responsible for the conduct of all persons connected with their car. This will include, but limited to crew chief, crew members, spotters, family members, sponsors, and guests. Any person from a crew, including the driver, going to another pit area or an area of the speedway grounds where an altercation occurs will be considered involved in the incident. The driver and any involved crew members may be subject to penalties, fines, loss of points, probation, suspension, and up to loss of ASA license. Any driver who, in the judgment of series officials, engages in rough driving, deliberately running into, blocking, or swerving in front of another car, which I guess you could argue that Nasse did that in the cooldown lap, and obviously at the end of the race, may be subject to penalties. Any car intentionally blocking the track will subject the owner and driver to immediate and indefinite suspension from the series. And then crew members are not allowed on the racetrack at any time. Pit crew, drivers, or series track officials are not allowed to service cars on the racing surface without specific permission from race control. All fines must be paid in full for the competitor to return to competition. And then interestingly here, this last paragraph, ASA informed Weaver that there might be more fines coming in the future once they continue to review the footage, and if they see if there's any other members, specifically maybe from Gio Ruggiero's team, that might need to be penalized if they indeed were on the track as well. It says here, as for the Wilson crew members who were also on a hot track but not penalized, ASA used video replays, social media content, etc. to ascertain who was on the track to either escalate or de-escalate accordingly. Should ASA officials find further evidence that adds to these penalties and add them to additional teams, they could act accordingly. So it's possible that they might do that, but it doesn't sound like they will. But that is what Stephen Nasse had to say. I do think the fine was maybe a little bit tough, but I also know that this is the first season of this tour. They are trying to set example. They don't want that type of behavior, and they don't want to tolerate, so they came down pretty harsh on it. And I am also kind of with Nasse, though, that you do kind of want some of that stuff. You want to see the passion. You want to see some of that stuff. I know that's one of the big complaints about NASCAR now is they don't really allow a lot of that stuff to happen. And when they do allow it to happen, it looks like it's kind of like WWE and stage. It's not actual true passion, which is what I think we saw with Nasse and Ruggiero there. So you do kind of want to see that, but you have to be able to rein it in. And there's a fine line I feel like you want to walk there as far as the sport is concerned. So I get what he's talking about, but I'm going to leave it to you. What do you guys think about what Stephen Nasse had to say here about the fine that he was issued following the Winchester 400?